this meeting to order. I'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. 8A, under new business, 2018 road projects. We just wanted to formally present to the council what you already approved, but to get seek bids. So.
All right. Can I get approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Open forum. Anybody like to say anything? All right. Approve as read. Consent agenda, approval of the minutes, approval of the bills and purchase orders, approval of the investments, 2 donation resolutions, 1 2018-4, a donation from Dr. Pat and Julianne Heller towards TriCab bus. Then a resolution number 2018-8 from Petro Plus, a donation to the Melrose Fire Department. There's some gambling resolutions for the Church of St. Mary's. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Reports, Police Department monthly report. Chief Mouse?
Good evening. For December 2017, in our traffic area, we had 12 citations issued, 34 verbal warnings, and 1 written warning. 2017, we had 302 calls or requests for service, and in 2016, it was 330. We ended the year on ICR 3520, and the year prior was 4,028, so we were down about 508 calls, which would be consistent with being down for staffing and contracting with the county, limited hours and whatnot. So we're happy with those numbers. One area of concern that we'd like to remind business owners and other folks is our suspicious activity calls have been fluctuating here and there, and a lot of that's related to businesses leaving lights on or doors open that aren't normally open at certain times of night. Just a reminder at the end of the day, when you lock up, turn off the switches that aren't supposed to be on. The officers get used to what should be there, and when things are on and not supposed to be, it brings some concern whether there's employees in after hours or people are not do-gooders hanging out after hours. So we want to make sure that everything's on the up and up. So just a reminder to the business community if we can keep that going. So.
All right.
Questions?
Is there any questions?
Just thank you for getting the detailed backup to us again. I appreciate
Not a problem.
that.
Okay. Thanks, Chief. City Attorney report?
Well, the note says I didn't get any real significant attention to any projects in December, so unless you've got...
We will be working with Scott between now and next month to put together a couple of ordinances and things that we've been working through the planning commissions and portable storage units and formal discussions there. So we'll get moving on that in February, March.
You'll get caught up.
Okay. All right. On to action items. I suppose we can do that all in groups. A is intoxicating liquor license renewal applications. 1 is intoxicating liquor on sale, off sale, Sunday on sale renewal. Do we have to do these individually?
No, just
Okay.
just the annual renewal.
Yep.
all the-
Club and Sunday on sale renewal, and 3-2 malt liquor off sale renewal. Can I get a motion to approve?
So we'll
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Parks and Recreation Board appointments. Can I get a motion to approve?
Also moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. C is land acquisition. If you want to touch on that one.
Yes, the city has been in discussions with the adjacent property owner about acquiring some parkland for just to secure the right-of-way and who owns it and to clarify it. And so we've had conversations with her. She is open to the idea. She has actually signed the purchase agreement or tentative purchase agreement, and which will then allow us to clean up that little parcel that we have there. The funds to pay this is just right around $3,000, we're guessing, to acquire this parcel and to aid in the smooth transition. And Planning Commission has reviewed it, EDA has reviewed it, the Land Acquisition Subcommittee has also reviewed it, and they've all recommended to approve it as presented. And the funds to pay for this would come out of the park's fundraisers monies and the funds that they have. Unless the city council would like to allocate funds from, say, its land acquisition fund that you have as well. But the park board does have funds set aside for this.
Any discussion? Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Opposed, motion carried.
So just to clarify, we will be taking this out of the parks fund then.
All right. D, First Street Northeast Project. Who wants to? Mike?
Hi, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. In your packet, I just provided an update on the project. I'd just like to go through a couple of the things and then answer any questions if you have any. Schedule. We're still looking at bringing 90% plans back to the council in February for the February meeting, just kind of review them, make sure that we're on track, get the council blessing before we go and finish those up. We want to have come back at the March 15th meeting and get the authorization for bid, put those out, open bids on April 11th, and bring it the recommendation of the council on April 19th, and hopefully begin the construction around May 7th and try to get that 400 block work completed to meet our grant deadline. Work completed this period. We've done the topographic survey. We've made our Go for One design locate. We've done some preliminary water and sewer design. As we talked at the last meeting, it wasn't intended, or the utilities did not want to replace the sewer. We've talked it over and we're going to go ahead and do that. So we've done some preliminary layouts on that. We had a public meeting with the property owners last week, Wednesday, I believe it was, on the 10th. We had a pretty good attendance. There were a number of questions. I kind of highlighted the questions in the memo. I don't need to go through those unless you have questions. But one of the things that came out of it was that as we talked about the sanitary sewer, there may be an opportunity to reverse the flow in some of those buildings and bring them back out to First Street. So in the future, when we have to reconstruct Main Street, we don't have to dig down on all those services. To do that, I'm probably going to need to go into each building to see what they have for plumbing, see if we can reverse it in the building, and then figure out if we have enough depth in First Street to do that. So a couple of issues that have come up as we've started design. Number one was that city-owned parking lot. We're really not sure who owns what there. So our surveyor has put together some numbers to do the title work review and figure that out. That number was included in your packet. And then our proposal that we had submitted for the original design did not include the sanitary sewer replacement. So there is a number in there for that. And we don't have the sewer map here, but one of the things that we're trying to do is the sewer comes up 3rd Avenue and then branches out on First Street. We can get to this point and then down 4th Avenue with about 7 feet of cover, which really, it's marginal. I talked to the owner of the Snap Fitness. He's got a bathroom down in the basement there, so I'm going to go in and we're going to have to measure depths to make sure that we can get in there. One of the things that through this last couple of weeks I've been looking at is the sewer on Main is really deep. What I could do is pick up the sewer in Main Street at 4th Avenue and run it deep in this direction. That would ensure that we'd be able to get all those buildings to the rear. It wouldn't require us to go out into Main Street, but with the county looking at overlaying this summer, it might be the opportune time to do that, get it patched up before they come through with their overlay to do that. It's that would certainly serve all these buildings, and we would be able to bring all these buildings back to First Street, and that would eliminate at least half of the services on Main Street. There would still be some on the south side of the roadway, but it would certainly reduce the downtime for those people during reconstruction in the future. So, you know, I can look at that. I can provide two different costs at the next meeting. We could finalize the sanitary sewer design then after the following meeting, if that's the direction that the council thinks they may want to go. We want to leave Main Street alone this summer. We certainly don't have to do that, but it is an option, so.
Question for you. Back in '96, when they did the reconstruct of Main Street, didn't they put all new water and sewer in?
No, I think they put some new water in, the sewer, and they may have put some sewer in down here. This block down here, though, is all old. I don't know if it went as far as the 500 block. I'd have to review that again, but from everything I looked at with Tim Vogel is that it was pretty tough, so.
In talking about reversing the flow on these buildings and private properties, where does the bill fall with that?
Well, I guess from a city standpoint, would be my recommendation that we put in the new sewer service to the property line, and then that cost from the building to the new sewer service would be at the property owner's expense. That's typically how we handle public versus private reconstruction stuff. We certainly, you know, it's probably, well, I don't know if robbing Peter to pay Paul is the right term, but, you know, it would be spending a little bit of money up front to defer some cost for the future. Certainly, you know, each one of those services, given the depth, it's probably almost a day's worth of work to make each sewer connection on those buildings out in Main Street. So when we look at downtime, the number of buildings, I think there may be some value to look at, you know, that cost. So obviously, I think we would need buy-in from
Well, that's my concern.
a majority of the people. So, I mean, I certainly don't want to force it on them, but I think it's something that, as I go to talk to them, I can give them an idea what it might cost in the future and see if they're interested in doing it.
And then the sewer costs as well as would be, that would be a conversation for the utility commission to formally adopt one way or the other for the sewer and the water.
I have a, you know, we're on a fairly tight timeline here. And, you know, I have a feeling we have a pretty good idea what the buy-in will be. Do we bother going through the trouble? To try and get.
That's a valid question. I mean, it really is.
Right.
I wanted to throw it out there just,
Yeah.
you know, so 10 years from now, we don't say, geez, I wish we'd have done, you know.
Yeah, yeah. But they all have perfectly functioning water and sewer today, so
It'd be a tough pill for them to swallow to say, yep, you're gonna spend, throw out a number, $2,500 to
500, yeah,
have it go out to the north instead out of the south.
right.
Yeah, I guess I have some personal experience with this. When I was in Fairmont, downtown, very similar, old. Actually, it was one of the council people that had a title company downtown, sewer collapse. It cost him about $20,000 to do it on his own. Then we fixed that, and then I think the very following winter, the next one broke, so it was another $20,000. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's just something to think about.
So Mike, I think it does make sense, and you and I talked about this, is that as a option one, option two scenario, to present that at next meeting. I
Okay.
think that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll certainly.
So we have some idea.
Yeah, and maybe as I meet with these people, I'll just have a sheet kind of explaining the numbers, the details, and then the potential cost up today, and then the future costs that, you know. And if they're interested, I'll just have them sign it and bring it to the council.
Since Mike's time is paid for already, do you think he could visit with the property owners?
Well, I mean, that's something that, some of the technical things or
Yeah.
Gary might,
Right.
but yeah, absolutely I will be.
Yeah.
Absolutely I will be. But Mike will be in the lead and having to do
Right.
that, and it's built into the.
The bid.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or concerns?
Was there any questions about sidewalk on that side at your meetings?
No, there really wasn't any objection to it. Mike, I
The
didn't,
biggest concern was just the trafficability of getting vehicles in and out during construction. That was the biggest comment that we heard.
yeah.
But I believe most of the businesses that were there, well, all of them I didn't hear one negative comment about sidewalks.
No, I didn't. I mean, as you mentioned, they were worried about how they were going to get in and out, how their garbage was going to get picked up, those types of things, but
The only comments that I had gotten was assessments.
Yes.
That's the next question for you guys tonight.
Well, I was wondering about too, maybe the amount of space the sidewalk takes, you lose a parking spot,
actually, we're creating more parking spots. We're widening the road. I think overall, we're roughly getting 8 to 10 additional parking stalls.
So you'd park along the road then too.
Yeah, in the future when it's done. Yes, correct.
So is that taking property from the property owners to widen the road?
No, we're currently going to build within the existing right-of-way.
Oh, and on First Street North, there used to be sidewalks going all the way down to the post office, except for in front of Always Mouse Motors and then Finkins, because there used to be houses on that empty lot there, here, and then there was a house with a post office. That all used to be sidewalk back in the day. I remember that.
Real quick question. I know, I think somebody had mentioned on Fourth Avenue, the diagonal parking was going to potentially switch to the other side of the road.
Yeah, I mean, that's a decision I think we'll bring back to the council.
Right.
It's paint right now. We can draw it one way today and change it tomorrow without any cost,
Right.
so.
Just thought I'd throw that out there so everybody
Yeah.
has that in their mind or whatever, thinking about it. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Now on to assessment policy.
As Councilmember T. Schaefer brought up, is the question is regards to, is the assessments, if we want to do that. The ballpark estimate, so our current policy states that if it's a 1-for-1 replacement, it's part of the tax bill. And the city sets money aside and we can go ahead and just fund that as we go. Now, the question is if there's something new, sidewalk, that is something that is technically eligible for assessment. And we could also partner with the residents if they wanted to assess that sewer, their portion. We could do that and assess that to them. They're up to their property line that we talked about. We could assess that as well, and that's totally voluntary up to them to help them finance that. But the question specifically for tonight is sidewalks. The ballpark costs for sidewalks, I believe, are estimated, your opinion was about $45,000. And the sidewalk in front of the new sidewalk is about $9,500. Is that something that the city would like to put as an assessment and then we would go through the formal process? Or do we just, it's part of the project and it's safety and it's a $1.2 million project or whatever it ends up being when it's all said and done?
Mr. Mayor, if I might comment, I guess normally I would say that we stick with the current policy. However, in this case, the assessable amount is so small, the cost to assess it will be disproportionately very high. We have to do the public hearing, all the notices, that stuff. The same as if we were assessing $1 million, to the city. So you're probably looking at $5,000 in cost to assess $9,500 in money to recoup. So just
The other thought I keep throwing around is we're already getting potentially $450,000 from another taxpayer kitty, if you will. and to now assess another $9,500 to a project that we, or whatever, it's been built in from day one, the sidewalk, you know, the property owners didn't lobby for it. We're kind of doing it as a convenience/safety thing. So I don't know that it really is worth the turmoil that we may have to go through.
I would agree.
I agree.
So to make this clear, what I would ask the council to do is, through consensus then, is that this is considered to be a safety public improvement, therefore it would not be assessed. Is that a good consensus?
Yep.
Yeah, does this come out of the sidewalk fund?
No, we don't got much in there.
It must have $9,500.
Okay. We're all good on that?
Yep,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, then the LCCMR grant bonding.
Yeah, this is after talking to Senator Westrom, Representative Anderson, WSB, their professional staff about what is the best potential bang for a buck for grant writing for this Rock Arch Rapids is the LCCMR grant. I've gotten 3 phone calls from Anderson and Westrom saying, Mike, Melrose is a pretty good potential at this. So I solicited a request from WSB to actually write this thing, to put together a nice proposal that goes along with it that we can then bring to the legislature to try to lobby on our behalf, and that's for $4,300 to do that. And so it'd be staff's recommendation to do this. I think we always got to be really cautious about writing grants and what do you get for it, and you know what are the strings associated to it. But if it doesn't go through, well, we stop. And the other question was, does the city council want us to formally submit a request for bonding for this Rock Arch Rapids as well? And so I would be looking for a motion one way or the other on either of those.
And by bonding, you mean at the state legislature?
State level.
Not the city of Melrose?
Right.
Correct. So the consideration is to approve the grant contract. Can I get a motion to approve that?
Just a question on that. In previous discussions, we had talked about that the Sauk River Watershed District was going to take the lead or have to take the lead on some of this. What's the status of that? How is that?
That is still pending before that board.
Okay.
That board has yet to make a decision if they're going to endorse this project or not.
And is there a timeline on that?
No. So, no, actually there is. There's a statutory rule, but I don't know what that is off the top of my head. Because we submitted it last month, they have so many days to respond. I don't know what that is, Josh, I'm sorry.
Could we wait to get an answer from
Well, that
them
was
prior
going
to
to,
spending
do we
this
have
money?
much,
Or is
or
that
do we
too
have
tight
much of an
timeline?
opportunity if they don't endorse this? Because we've heard, from your group and everybody else that having them on board is very critical.
Right,
And if they don't come on board, do we want to spend the $4,300?
right.
I think according to their staff that we've spoken to, I have not spoken to their board directly, is that the staff believes that this is a sound project. The DNR believes it's a sound project. In regards to the formal board actions, they haven't been able to address that yet. But the question's really going to be, will they fund it? And so this would be a joint application, and I would feel very comfortable saying that both of those organizations would write letters of support, if not ultimately just take this funding as part of their project.
Does it make sense to have staff and one of the council members to go to their next board meeting and make the pitch?
I've asked them if we should be there. I said, I'll be there, we'll be there. And Scott said, as of right now, just hold off until our next meeting, then I'll let you know. But I think we probably should just show up, to be honest with you.
Well, and I can certainly give them a call and probably don't want, there's other things that I'd like to talk to them about too. And I'll call with those as my main topic and then say, oh yeah, what about the,
So is there a timeline with approving this?
Yeah, Mike, what's the deadline for this one? Wasn't it, it's coming up in like,
I want to say March it's due.
yeah.
And I cannot tell you how long it takes to put these together. I personally have never done one. The draft proposals are due March 14th, so but the finals are due in April.
What the council could do is, since we don't meet for another 30 days, is we could approve this contingent upon positive feedback from the Sauk River watershed. Or would that be okay?
I'd be more comfortable with that.
Okay, if that would be.
Maybe fair.
Right.
You want to put that into a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I get a second on that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Then the second part is to provide consideration or request state bonding funds.
Same
Any-
thing?
any-
It's contingent on the Sauk River watershed thing?
According to Senator Westrom, he said, Mike, submit a request, see what
Yes.
happens.
What's involved with submitting a request?
It's me writing a memo and taking that map there and with a rough
So it really doesn't
ballpark
cost us
estimate.
anything.
Just a little time and I'll be down at the Capitol 3 or 4 times throughout the year.
Yeah. When you, when you submit the bonding request, is that part of the transportation bonding bill, or is
This would be a
completely
separate
type of bond?
project. And we would try to work the angle of fisheries or something like that versus Melrose.
Right, so in your letter, you could maybe, if we could get some type of wording from SRWD or fisheries, whatever, that this is a positive project or a good project, then add that into your request, correct?
You have to put a dollar value on that bond?
Yeah, you do.
So what would that be?
I'm assuming we're just thinking about the Rock Arch Rapids
That's it.
portion of that. We'll know that within the next month or two as that preliminary design. I hate to venture a guess today. If I was going to tell you today, it'd be between $500,000 and $1.5 million, but I don't know, so.
I'm gonna go ask for the 1.5.
There you go. I kind of figured that.
But it's in Senator Westrom and Representative Anderson both stated that it's a really tight year and it's very unlikely, but it's worth a shot. And Melrose might be successful, especially with the overall regional impact that this thing could have.
Okay. So,
Real, on the topic of the Rock Arch Dam at the bridge, and, you know, I was just looking at your schematic over here, and the way the channel alignment, I don't know if you're still looking at channel alignment or not?
We
but-
are.
Okay, because I see it skewed quite a bit, and it kind of looks like it almost goes right around that little shelter down there.
We're trying to.
I hope we're not aligning the channel of the river based on that little shelter being there, because that's
No,
fairly easily moved.
Our hydrologist,
Well, I mean, in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of the things, and the velocity in the channel, what the concern is the scour on this side, the south side of the river.
Right.
So the more we straighten that out, probably the less we're gonna spend in riprap. So if we have to take out that shelter, we certainly will. I mean, to save money.
Right.
It's got to be a positive cash flow situation for us and long-term maintenance, so, yeah, we're not
Right.
specifically trying to avoid that just to avoid it.
Well, and just to be clear, why that's such a big issue is because it's like 5 foot deep, I've been told, of cement. The footings are like, it's not just a footing, it's the entire pad is like 5 foot deep by 20 by 20, whatever the width of that shelter is, so
Right.
a lot of cement knocked out of there.
But in the grand scheme of that whole project, that's pretty tiny.
okay. So, is there a motion approved for the request for state bonding funds?
So move.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Opposed, motion carried. Old business, Parkland northwest of Melrose. Who wants to talk about that one?
Well, this was actually a project that our Community Development Director, Mike Creelman, is working on, but where we're at with this is there was a request from a budding property owner just outside the city limits to turn some of their property into a park or some type of development. So they originally approached the city a good year and a half ago about this, and we said, well, it wasn't in our comp plan from a staff perspective, but if you'd like to pursue it, just let us know. And then from there, they went to the county and asked the county, and the county reviewed it from the commission as well as their parks board, and they said it's not within their scope, but they would be willing to work with the city of Melrose to, if the city of Melrose were to take this. So what we did with that information was that we then presented it to the Planning Commission as well as to the Parks Board to see if they were open to the idea of adding this particular parcel where it's located into the city's master plan as well as into the park space. And after reviewing the location, reviewing the potential cost to acquire the property as well as to provide public infrastructure to it, it was the recommendation from both boards not to pursue this particular parcel as future park space. There is some other land that the city would like, that is identified within the parks master plan and the city's community parks space. So based on that, it was their recommendation not to proceed with acquiring this parcel or continuing conversation, just because of the realities to serve it. And
How many acres was that about?
Gary,
33.
40.
it's a beautiful piece of land, it really is. But the concern was it's outside the city limits, and getting infrastructure there is well over a quarter mile to get infrastructure to the site. But there's alternatives. You could put in a well, and you could put in a septic, or just do nothing
I don't think
there as
it's-
well.
I don't
So-
think it's right at this time, put it that way. So, do you need a motion or anything to?
It would be nice to be able to formally respond back to the county as well as to the property owners that it's just not within our comprehensive plan at this time.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. There's a motion made. Can you?
Second.
Okay, first and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right. 8A, new business, 2018 road projects.
This is we approved this in our budget meetings. However, we wanted to get this before the board to formally seek quotes, and so we can get moving on this and have it in conjunction with our micro seal project that we're doing. So staff put together a couple maps. We sent it off to WSB. They looked at it. They gave us some numbers back, and Gary and Mike can talk about that. But what we're looking for is allowing us to formally seek bids and present it back to the council at hopefully our March meeting.
Okay.
So I'll let Mike and Gary to touch on the costs and.
Was there a map in the
Yep.
packet? Okay, we ran it real quick, and this really literally just came up today. So we ran some quick numbers. We're looking at the seal coating projects for all the streets, and then also the shoulders on Craft Drive where the micro sealing is going to be done, and then restriping those streets that currently have stripes. So we're looking at a construction cost of about $115,000. So if the council so inclined to move forward with this, I would highly recommend that we advertise for bids to avoid any confusion, and move forward in that direction. So we would be looking at getting bids back in on March 5th and presenting those at the March council.
And so the way that we would be proceeding with this, as we've talked about, is city staff would take care of the micro seal, WSB would take care of the seal coat and the fog seal and the outside edges of the seal coat, of the micro seal for the.
There's two simple questions. This was in the budget for this year, and does 115 match what was in the budget for the year?
Actually, we're good. We're actually below it.
Okay.
So it was 160, Tessa, is that right? Is that?
162 for seal coat and 50 for the micro seal.
Yeah. So we're good.
Does
with
that
our
include
estimate.
the engineering or the WSP taking the lead or whatever? Does that include, I can't remember what the line item. You know, at WSP services or whatever, basically.
Right.
I don't know if that.
I think the quote, the ballpark estimate that we have in the opinion is based on just the costs for the materials.
Okay. I won't imagine it's a whole lot, but. You know,
No, I mean, to get the specs prepared and everything, it's probably about $3,500. There'll be some advertising cost of, Patty, do you know what that might?
125.
Yeah, that could be $500. So at 2 days inspection at most, probably, so.
Just want to make sure we're not blowing next year's budget already. So, all right.
All right. So Can I get a-
I'll make a motion
All
too.
right, can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Opposed, motion carried. Information items, schools and conferences, public utilities commission meeting minutes. Anything else?
I do have one quick thing here. Yesterday, we had a SHIP Community Planning Pathways meeting. The Minnesota Department of Health came to the city. They had a bunch of stakeholders here from the county to the hospital to, they had a number of people here, the school. And they were talking about master plans for parks and trails, and it was a very good meeting. But one of the things that came out of it was a partnership with Stearns County. Stearns County has a $10,000 grant that they have that they would like to present to the city as well as to the school district jointly to do a master plan for pedestrians and pathways, very similar to the what is it called again? The Safe Routes to School.
Safe Routes to School.
Safe Routes to School program. So it's a $10,000 grant, and so what we would do is we would contract, say, with a company like WSB to put together that plan for us, and then that would be our formal joint plan. So I've asked WSB to just shoot us a quote, what it would cost to do. Is it close to that $10,000 grant? Is it more than that? Albany just went through this, and they have a new plan that they just adopted, and they partnered with the school district and the hospital and the city to fund the difference from that $10,000 grant. So I just wanted to let you know that this came up. There's a bunch of other kind of fun ideas that were floated at that to get people to walk more. Some of those things include, public art and striping of sidewalks a little differently, doing chalk art, allowing people to do chalk art at like Riverfest and things like that on sidewalks. Talked about big logos in the middle of of sidewalks, but there's concerns about that from liability perspective, I guess. There's issues with that, but
Not that it was discussed at that meeting, but didn't a few years ago we make signs and have little trails that identified distances and things like that?
we sure did, and that was one of the things they really commended Melrose on having that. To get to the next step, what we could do for that is actually put signs up instead of just those flyers that we have now. So that was a pretty low-cost impact project that we could do, and we're going to put some of these things before the Parks Board to see what they would like to do and to continue on discussions and doing some of these fun, quick win projects. So, but that's just coming up in the months to come. It's just informational item, and we'll see what it shakes out for a grant, and we'll see if you guys want to, if this is something we want to partner on, or if we just want to wait a year or 2 or 3 or whatever. So.
Okay. Sound good? All right, that's it. Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Can we get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Opposed, motion carried.